The date is July 1943. After the disaster at Stalingrad, Hitler knew time was running out. He needed one final knockout blow to crush the Soviet Union and force a peace. That blow was to be delivered at Kursk, a massive, perfect-looking bulge in the Eastern Front. Hitler named the Operation Citadel, a sign of absolute, unshakable confidence. But the confidence was a lie. The Germans were walking into the largest, deadliest trap in military history. Unlike any other battle in the war, the Soviets knew everything. Soviet espionage, fueled by the British ultra-intelligence and their own vast network, knew the exact date, the exact time, and the exact strategic goals of Citadel. This certainty allowed the Soviets to do something unprecedented. They didn't just defend, they prepared. The Kursk salient was turned into an absolute defensive nightmare. The Soviets laid down 3 massive defensive belts stretching over 150 miles deep. This wasn't just trenches. This was the densest concentration of landmines and anti-tank guns ever seen on Earth. They were digging in more than they were maneuvering. For the first time, the Soviet Union was not reacting to Hitler. It was dictating the terms of engagement. Hitler, desperate to use his new wonder weapons, the Tiger and Panther tanks, delayed the attack for weeks, waiting for more to roll off the assembly lines. This delay was fatal. Every single day Hitler waited. The Soviets added another mile of minefield, another line of barbed wire, and another 1,000 anti-tank guns. The German delay did not strengthen the attack. It strengthened the Soviet defense, turning an ambitious offensive into a doomed metal-grinding suicide mission. On July 5, 1943, Operation Citadel finally began. But the German tanks never made it to the Soviet lines in formation. At 2:20 a.m., hours before the official start, Soviet artillery unleashed a devastating preemptive strike, a massive counter-barrage that shattered German communications, staging areas, and troop morale before they even moved. The element of surprise, the cornerstone of the German blitzkrieg, was gone. The German advance quickly stalled in the minefields. The new Tiger and Panther tanks were impressive, but their slow deployment and mechanical problems proved disastrous. They were massive, unstoppable killing machines until they were stuck in a ditch or hit by the combined fire of a dozen hidden anti-tank guns. The myth of the unstoppable German tank was shattered in the mud and the fire of the Kursk defense. The climax of the battle arrived at Prokhorovka, a name synonymous with sheer, unadulterated carnage. This was not a tactical engagement, it was a head-on collision. On a single day, thousands of tanks and self-propelled guns clashed in a furious, close-quarters maelstrom. The distance was so close that tank gunners often could not depress their massive cannons enough to hit the enemy, resulting in tank-on-tank ramming. The metal melted, men burned alive, and the ground was literally soaked in oil and blood. When the smoke cleared, both sides were exhausted. But the strategic outcome was clear. The German offensive had been completely broken. Kursk was Hitler's final offensive on the Eastern Front. It was a failure of colossal proportions, and the cost was staggering. While Soviet losses were numerically higher, a gruesome reality of Soviet tactics, the Germans lost the irreplaceable. Their elite panzer divisions, their best officers, and their entire armored reserve. This battle did not just defeat the German army. It permanently crippled its capacity to launch any major strategic offense for the remainder of the war. From this point forward, the German military would only be able to retreat and defend. The Soviets used audacious deception to amplify their victory. They cleverly concealed their true reserves and their actual losses, leading the Germans to overestimate the scale of the destruction inflicted. This deception was as crucial as their tanks, but the final collapse of the German effort was hastened by events hundreds of miles away. As the battle raged at Kursk, the Allies landed in Sicily, Operation Husky. Hitler, facing a crisis in the West, was forced to divert critical divisions, including the elite SS Panzer Corps, away from the Eastern Front to defend Italy. The Battle of Kursk and the invasion of Sicily, two battles fought thousands of miles apart, converged to deliver the final strategic death blow to Nazi Germany. Hitler's dreams of a swift victory in the East were not only crushed by Soviet defenses, but were permanently sacrificed on the altar of a two-front war he could no longer manage. The Battle of Kursk was the largest, loudest, and most brutal confrontation in military history. It fundamentally changed the trajectory of the war. It cemented the Soviet Union as the ultimate unstoppable force that would eventually capture Berlin. The men who fought in the anti-tank ditches, the artillery crews who fired until their guns glowed red, and the tankers who fought hand-to-hand in the blazing fields of Prokhorovka, they bore the weight of total war. Their battle was not always a story of genius. It was a story of sheer, cold endurance and the horrific scale of death that defines the Eastern Front. We must remember Kursk not just as a victory, but as the moment Hitler's strategic mind failed completely, crippled by arrogance and betrayed by intelligence. The greatest tank battle was not won in a spectacular charge, but in the grueling, hidden layers of earth and steel the Soviets dug beforehand. The truth is, the war for Germany was lost long before the tanks started rolling. It was lost when Hitler thought he could outsmart the invisible trap closing around him. This has been War Stories Uncut. The fight in the East defined the 20th century. Subscribe now and hit the bell. Next time, we explore the unsung heroes of the Pacific. The U.S. submarine war that starved Japan into surrender.